is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
All right, I'm going to start this recording with, I don't know if it's a correction or a further information, but so when we were shouting out Patreons, we did our top 10, over 1,000, over 500, and that was just for WoTSpoilers. I do want to say, some people wrote me and were like, hey, you know, I also gave money to your other podcasts. Are you not counting that? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Some of you might, you know, some of those people who gave money to other causes because they've been around for such a long time, particularly Mistborn Spoilers or Just Roll With It or one of our other projects. So I do want to apologize to anyone who gave money to those projects and didn't get counted. So I do apologize for that. I know there's people who have supported us in so many different ways, with merch, with SpoilerCon. You know, it's just with Patreons, the list is there, and it's easy to remember and easy to shout out. So I do want to thank everybody else who's also helped out. And specifically, Evan McMavoy? McMava? Shit. He gave me a pronunciation guide. And I'm having trouble even with the pronunciation guide. So that tells you how hard names are. It's capital M-A-H-C, capital M-A-Y, dash lowercase V-U-H. So how would you say that?
I cannot pronounce things based on a linear string of mouth noises. It's one of my brain's, holes. Oh, okay, I can read that. McMava.
So Evan McMava wrote me to let me know that he is Block on the New Kid, which, of course, as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, of course, right? So, you know, he's been around forever, big fan of the podcast.
Yeah, I remember that name from a long time ago. Was around for a good long while when the Discord was hopping.
Yeah, back in been around since 2017, and Old Blonde patron.
Yeah, so every name that we didn't recognize, we would actually recognize. We just didn't connect the screen name to the name.
To the name. Yep. Which I think I said while I was reading it out that I'm sure I was missing some of these. So I thank you for writing in and correcting me. All right. So today we are here once again for chapter 29. It's another Maighdin chapter.
Yeah, we're getting multiple episodes recorded in one day. What a throwback to the old ways of podcasting.
Shh, don't tell them that.
Before my time.
Don't tell them that. It's the illusion. It's a totally different day. We didn't just finish the last episode, take a quick break, and come back to do this one. That's not what happened.
I think the tired post-desert quality of my voice might clue them into that fact.
Fortunately, we don't have to worry about Perrin tying any more knots in that stupid leather cord while he waits to rescue Fael for 4 freaking books, because this is the last knot.
The last knot.
Knot.
Goodness, we're done with that.
Chapter 29, our symbol is the wolf, because this is a Perrin Wolfie chapter, and what else would it be? I mean, I guess we have the blacksmith's puzzle now that we didn't have before, which could be a really good Perrin. It's specifically, I think, about Maighdin, though, because it's about, pulling apart the puzzle that is Maighdin.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he's been doing this whole time for all of these books, is assembling the pieces and getting them in the right places so that he can pull this thing apart. Now, little does he know, his linchpin which is Galena, is totally Black Ajah, but fortunately, Taviran will get him in the right place anyway.
Handy that.
It would have been really nice to see Jordan do something with the blacksmith's puzzle in this chapter, the way he does it with Snakes and Foxes, or I guess Brandon technically does it, in the last books, where there's this parallel, right? Where the game is being played, or someone's trying to take apart some sort of, cool. I would have liked to see, Aram get, pushed to the side and hey, instead of fighting, I need you to relax and solve this blacksmith's puzzle, and have him go through the mental struggle of trusting Perrin or trusting the prophet, and struggling with that as he's playing with the blacksmith's puzzle as Perrin is fighting. And then there's this moment where the puzzle falls apart, is the moment where Perrin rescues Fael, is the moment where Aram has this realization that maybe violence isn't everything, and that maybe Massima's wrong, and that maybe he should listen to Perrin. You know, I'd love to have seen some sort of parallel structure going on in the way that Rand fighting his battle in the clouds affected the army in the Great Hunt, right? There's so many examples of it in the series. This would have been another great place for it.
That would have been really, really cool. I would have loved to see that. Aram like de-radicalizes himself as he pulls the puzzle apart, as he helps Perrin rescue Fael on a metaphysical level.
Right.
That would have been really satisfying. I would have been okay with him recycling that maneuver. That move had multiple uses in it, I think.
But I guess I should read us in. Perrin stood just below the ridgetop, near the edge of the fog, and studied the encampment and stone-walled town below. 200 paces of fairly steep slope, sparsely dotted with low brush down to the level ground. Perhaps 700 more of cleared ground to the first tents, then better than a mile to the town. It seemed so close now. He did not use his looking glass. A glint off the lens from the sun just peeking over the horizon, a fingernail edge of golden red might ruin everything. The grayness around him curled, but did not really move with the breeze, even when it gusted and made his cloak stir. The dense mist on the far ridge, obscuring the windmill there, seemed too still as well if you studied it a while. How long before someone among those tents noticed? There was nothing to be done for it. The fog felt like any fog, damp and a little cool, but somehow Niald had fixed these mists in place before he went off to his other tasks. The sun would not burn them off even at noonday, or so the Ashaman claimed. Everything would be done by noon, one way or another. But Perrin hoped the man was right. The sky was clear, and the day looked to be warm for early spring. Only a few Shido seemed to be outside the camp, relatively speaking, but thousands of white-clad figures bustled among the tents. Tens of thousands. His eyes ached to find Fael among them. His heart ached to see her. But he could as well try to pick out one particular pin from a barley basket of them spilled on the ground. Instead, he stared at the town's gates, standing wide open as they had every time he gazed on them. Invitingly wide, they called to him. Soon Fael and her companions would know it was time to head for those gates, and the towered fortress that bulked at the north end of town. She might be at chores if the maidens were right about how the prisoners would be treated as Gaishain, but she would know to slip away and go to the fortress. She and her friends, and likely Elise as well. Whatever her scheme with the Shido, the Aes Sedai would not want to remain on a battlefield. A second sister in the fortress might come in handy. The light send, it did not come to that.
Yeah, soon Fael and her friends will be ignoring their wolf calls because they have bigger issues.
Because they're trapped in the base of a house. So yeah, and Elise is the what he knows Galena by.
Right. It's far too close to Moraine's alibi for anyone's comfort.
Yeah. It's like they all use the same playbook when they're out there in the wild.
Yeah. Get new material. Stop cribbing off of each other.
It's like this one dusty old book that someone wrote 600 years ago. How to, make friends and influence people, right? Like, all the Aes Sedai read it. People, how to spy and be a common person. Name yourself Elise or Amise. Pretend you're looking for old stories. The usual stuff.
Yeah.
Live with your best friend for a long time in a hut with no men around and claim you're just friends and or sisters.
Perrin thinks about how people are more chaotic than blacksmith's puzzles, and yet then continues to spend the rest of his life insisting on looking at the world as a blacksmith's puzzle. So he has this great insight and then ignores it. It's Perrin, that was just a really poignant thought. Why don't you notice?
Yes, but right, it is a way of framing the world and looking at it. Is like you need these people, like in order for the people to do what you want, you have to give them something, right? And so that's the piece of the puzzle. And then what's the thing you need? Well, you have to go get that thing, and then you like I can see where, despite acknowledging that people are more complicated than the blacksmith's puzzle, it's still good framing. It's still a good model, right? Same thing with physics, right? All of our physical models, we look at physics and go, it's more complicated than that, but it's a pretty good model, right? Like, right,
and that is kind of the deal with models, is they are inherently flawed. That's kind of part of their job as models.
They are, yes.
Is to be an inaccurate representation of reality.
Close enough.
Right. Simple enough that we can actually make some kind of useful predictions from said model.
My favorite example of that is in engineering, when my professor said, so yeah, we just take sine theta and say it equals theta for small theta. And I went, wait, what? And they said, yeah, so you take this equation, sine theta, And you just replace that with the number that you were going to plug into it. Because for small enough numbers, they're basically the same number. And in the real world, it's close enough. And I went, no, because the sign of a number is not the number. What are you talking? Like, it took me like a solid week of banging my head against the wall before I went, oh, you're just doing an approximation.
Because application matters. The context matters.
Yeah, just application matters. The context matters. And just for a small enough angle, it's fine. For a small enough angle, outside of a 15-degree angle, you're screwed, right? But, like, there's a lot of things where, like, a building isn't going to bend more than 15 degrees. Ever.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like,
right.
So you can approximate sine theta with theta. And it works, and it doesn't make sense. Still, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, the world.
The world. That's why I've always been a little bit more of a mathematician than an engineer.
Sure. Speaking of people who are literal, I love Perrin thinking about Daniel acquiring polish and whatever that's supposed to mean. A man is not a piece of brass.
You don't rub polish on a man. He's like, what has he got? Like, is his head shinier? Is he like going bald? Is that the kind of polish we're talking about? No. It's rubbing shoulders with nobles and manners and also just, man, Jordan, are you just stop picking on Daniel? He's like, oh yeah, I can identify him in the fog from a distance because no one else has that profile with the nose that big, like, and the bushy mustache underneath. Like, he's really going hard at Daniel there. I gotta feel bad for him. And then this guy running around, Jory Conger, is going around trying to play dice, and nobody wants to play because he's uncommonly lucky. And I went down this rabbit hole. I was like, oh man, does he have some luck? Is he related to Matt? And then I looked at his character. He's the drunkard. He's one of the town drunkards. He has weighted dice. He cheats. He's just a cheat.
You were asking earlier in the last recording for more people who just lie rather than being clever with the truth. Well, here you go. Here's a guy who he's not uncommon lucky. He just cheats.
He's a conger. You don't dice with congers. They're gonna have weighted dice. Duh, of course.
Right. The congers are not the Cothans, despite the fact that those names start with C.
Not the Coplans either.
No. Well. Maybe.
Thank you, Robert Jordan.
I know.
Well, yeah. At least it's not an S name.
So next we get to talk about Massima.
Yeah.
And how many of his followers there are. It's a reminder of this wild card that is in the army. And
Massima's coming to visit, right? So he is separating from his army with 20 guards to go to hang out with Perrin during this battle.
Yeah. Yeah, he's left some of his underlings in charge. They're going to hold to the last man because the women will hunt them down if they don't. And yeah, him and an honor guard of better armored people have come over to be with Perrin because sure would be a shame if something were to befall you at the very moment that you rescue your wife.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like the most open, naked threat
situation
ever. And Perrin's just like, I guess I have to remember to watch my back while I go into battle. Like, he doesn't have other things to do while he's in a battle.
But at the same time, he's being pretty ruthless, right? With the followers of the Prophet. He is putting them in harm's way. He is putting them in a situation where he's expecting them to basically be cannon fodder for everyone to get carved out. He's kind of murdering them all.
He is effectively getting rid of Massima's army the only way he knows how, which is violently. Yeah. And he's, justifying it by saying he's using it to protect people who are not radical terrorists, his actual army, rather than all these, completely brainwashed terrorists, like literally, they've been running around just doing like terrorism everywhere. And he's like, well, this will, they're better that they die to the Shido than my people. And it's like, yeah, but that's pretty rough, dude.
But this is 20,000 people. 20,000 people.
It's a lot of people to just point at a meat grinder. Like, this is some World War I sort of ambitions on his part.
It's a lot of deaths that Perrin kind of just says they're corrupted by that smell, so they're not good anymore.
He just gets to arbitrate these people's worth. Okay.
Which then, to me, it's harder for me then when he's like, well, those white cloaks have value. Like, we shouldn't kill the white cloaks. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Perrin, okay, Mr. Murdering 20,000 of the Prophet's followers.
That does seem a skosh hypocritical.
Just a little bit. These people are bad, but those people, they're just misguided.
Yeah, this cult has gone too far, but this cult is redeemable. Like, I thought you would be more of a hardliner, binary sort of thinking on that, Perrin.
Again, this is where I think Aram could have come in. Like, you give Aram, have Aram take over for the Prophet, have him come to a realization, have him tone down the fanaticism a little bit, and have him be more of a reasonable follower of the Dragon Reborn and Perrin, and have him become the new leader, and have these people involved in the last battle. Then sacrifice them.
In fairness, that is kind of why he gives the White Cloaks a second chance, is because Galad
totally
is that new leader who seems to be wanting to pull in a different direction. I really would have loved to see Aram, take over for the Prophet and somehow, bring the rest of them through a de-radicalization process somehow through having
the one that he's gone through himself.
Exactly. Somehow pull them all through. And then, maybe they all go down to a man in the last battle because that's what the last battle needs. But they get saved
for the last battle.
To be able to be thrown at the last battle rather than, being wasted on other humans.
Because that's Perrin's strengths, right? Strength. He is bringing together all of these desperate groups of people to fight under one banner for the Dragon Reborn. That's what he's doing. That's why he's going on this Taviran journey and recruiting Shan Chan and White Cloaks and Two Rivers folks. And, he's bringing these groups together, and Aiel, right? He's bringing these groups together.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see him incorporate the Brotherless, see him incorporate some of the less radical people, have this army be a true pantheon of people from across.
Ooh, that would have been so cool if a bunch of Aiel who couldn't accept Rand could accept Perrin.
Right.
And, they weren't able to accept the Karakarn, but, they can follow the Dragon Reborn via Perrin Golden Eyes. And, in that way, Rand is able to marshal more of the Aiel than he thought he could.
Yes.
That would have been really, really satisfying.
And then you have Matt bringing in the Shan Chan that you didn't think would otherwise fight, right? And so they both bring in, Perrin brings in this incredible amount of Shido and Two Rivers folk and, this not Shido, but Brotherless, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all these people and the wolves and he brings in this incredible army. And so that's what I would like to see is Perrin and Matt both bringing in their own armies to the battle.
I mean, they do.
They do.
Want to see him bigger and even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a shame that once he gets Fael back, suddenly he's able to make these elevated arguments about how even though the White Cloaks are terrorist murderers, they should be allowed a chance to fight Trollocs. But he couldn't see that for Massima because Massima's cult was a means to an end for getting Fael back. And granted, Sanderson does have him wrestling with his moral hypocrisy about that later, but. Yeah, it's just... The White Cloaks don't seem to deserve a second chance, given that their entire multi-century military history is about being terrorists. Massima's cult has been around for, a year.
Right.
The White Cloaks have been around for centuries. I don't know, I feel like they're sort of equally beyond redemption. Or they should be. But, oh well. That's not what we get.
Mm-mm.
I mean, yeah, they do believe differently, Speluncle. That is true. They're not the same, but from where Perrin's sitting, it seems like they should look the same, given what Perrin has specifically suffered from the White Cloaks.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, they're all thieves and murderers.
There's a certain amount of smell to it, right? They smell crazy.
He does literally describe them both as having that smell. But also there's a lot less White Cloaks. By the time he's dealing with them, it's 7,000 White Cloaks as opposed to 20,000 of Massima's rabble. So there might also be a sheer momentum to it that's easier to deal with. Also, let's not forget classism. The White Cloaks are all cavalry.
Right. And with armor, full set of armor, swords, right? Yeah, Messina's followers. Yeah.
So they're not just rabble; they're a genuine trained military force. So they're higher value, which means that it's more valuable to keep them.
How many white cloaks is 20,000 rabble worth? 1,000? 2? 5? Probably not, right? Could 5,000 cavalrymen run down 20,000 rabble? Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're not very valuable as troops anyway, I guess is sort of the point. But yeah, it does seem like extermination, while satisfying, is the wrong answer for Perrin.
I mean, I think generally extermination's not the right answer. We probably are meant to be left dissatisfied by an answer that involves extermination.
Yeah, right. But I guess it's just the focus on Fail.
Yeah, we have to have flawed heroes, right? This is a flaw.
So he encounters I'd call it the Maighdin, the Andor crowd.
Basil Gill and co.
Basil Gill and
Yeah, he's sending them off. This is kind of what triggers the encounter with the White Cloaks, right? He sends his Shambayan with his household staff and all the furniture away because he's like, if things go badly, you can't defend yourselves. You should get away now. And if things go well, then we'll catch you up in a few days and it'll be fine. But then they get captured by the White Cloaks, which is why the whole trial and all of that happens, is because he suddenly has delivered hostages to people he knows are murderous terrorists, the White Cloaks.
And yet negotiates with them. Doesn't negotiate with the Shido. Not in a little bit. Not in the least.
Yeah. Well, he has Fail to help him be organized when he has the other hostages, right? Like, she handles a hostage situation much better than he does. Also, she was never a hostage, she was a prisoner, whereas like these people actually are hostages. But yeah, he has to be very firm with Leanie to get her to go. She does not want to leave, and she does not want to acknowledge Perrin, so he has to like clap at her like she's a dog.
I love that he turns to Master Gill and says, Master Gill, you make sure she rides with you, and if you have to tie her up and put her in the back of the cart. And Master Gill's like, he smelled of alarms suddenly. He's like, no, I'm not fucking dealing. Lenny will kick my butt. Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, Master Gill is not interested in being the one responsible for tying up Lenny.
Yeah. But then Lenny accepts that this is the safest thing for her, and she does not make Master Gill have to deal with that level of heart attack. And she just cooperates, which is good. And we also get a brief mention of some Shido Gaishain who have been captive since the battle in Kyrian and are only a few months away from the end of their year in a day, which is just a fun little like reminder that there are Shido who have nothing to do with this entire Maighdin situation because they've been Gaishain the whole time. Like, there are actually Shido running around as Gaishain who are going to slowly be trickling back into Aiel society in the aftermath of things that they could not have affected the entire time.
There's a real question, like, what are those? Are they going to go back to Shido? Are they going to stay? Like, that's where I think some people who stay Gaishain and never give it up. Some people throw away the spear, right? Like, I mean, what do you do if you're a Shido and you just watched your people basically get wiped out?
Yeah.
For the second time. And like, you're free, and you're like, I don't really want to be. Like, I'm good.
Like, free to do what?
Yeah.
Free to go home to nothing? Like, yeah. Yeah, that's a wild problem that they have to deal with.
And not one that's really addressed in the books, yeah.
No, not really. Not really.
There's a certain amount of cultural fallout that I feel like we just leave behind when we go to Sanderson. That it's more about the events of the battle and the last battle, and we kind of stop caring. The people are all there to fight, and they all kind of say, we're going to worry about society later because we need to survive the last battle first, which makes sense. But there is a lack for me, there's a bit of lack of closure as to how do some of these things. But I mean, it's the wheel of time, right? There are no endings, right? You don't get closure on some of these things. They're just gonna be problems. And
yep.
If you were writing another story, you'd get to talk about it, but they're not. So we just have to imagine this is a problem and part of society moving forward with the Aiel.
Yeah. So some maidens come back saying, we've killed our first Shido for the day. We've taken out some sentries, lost a couple of our own. Like, the butcher's bill is starting to rack up already.
Yeah, 2 dead, 1 wounded.
And then we get mention of Aram and how he gravitated towards Missima and seemed almost to bask in some light that Missima gave off. Aram and Perrin thinks, oh, maybe I should have sent him away like a child. That probably wouldn't have worked. And thus, the fact that Aram is going to die today gets sealed.
Any reason why Berylene is wearing her coronet?
I assume that it just is the right thing to do on a day when your soldiers are going to be fighting in a big battle. Like, it's what the queen does or the monarch does. Is like, you dress up in your best. This is a big day for you. You're asking men to die for you. The least you can do is look as regnal as possible.
It's just parents, for some reason, what do you think? Like,
It seems really obvious to me.
Yeah, it seems really obvious. Yeah, okay. That I had the same sort of thing where I was like, what do you mean for some reason?
Wearing her parade best. Like, why is this hard, sir?
Also, like, if Fail's coming back, I think she's, wants to impress. Because,
Yeah, for sure.
At this point, I'm convinced Berylene is as into Fail as she is into Perrin. And that's like...
Oh, yeah.
Her interest has definitely waned in Perrin without Fail there to compete with. Right? That's what she loves. She loves the competition. That's why Perrin's been safe this whole time. There's no one to compete with. It's really boring.
Yeah, so when she rescues Fail, she wants to be, with her horse and her dress and her crown all looking their best.
And I know Berylene has this fantasy of riding up on her horse and saying, welcome back, as Fail, like, in her muddy dress, like, oh, thank you, you've saved me. You just,
yeah.
And you took such good care of Perrin while I was gone. Like, just, I know this fantasy's playing out in Berylene's head. And of course, she's got to look her best for it. Right?
Yeah, totally. Berylene lives for the drama.
Yeah, she's not the only character who enjoys tea in this series. It's just a different kind of tea.
Indeed.
So they send one of the wise ones to do the healing instead of the Aes Sedai because she's more skilled, which is sort of an interesting sort of conversation about where the wise one's skills. Like, they have taken the learning from... I think mostly Egwene and Moraine.
I think they've been learning from Seonad and Masuri. I think that having them just around, they've been exchanging weaves.
That's right. Because they've taken on all the Aes Sedai apprentices for a long time.
Right. Even the ones who are not technically apprentices, they're still basically apprentices. So, like, they've been learning from them. They've been extracting information from the Aes Sedai.
I love that the universal interaction between the wise ones and the Aes Sedai is the wise ones going, oh, you need some learning.
Right. You have some academic knowledge, but your practical applied versatility is really lacking. But the Aes Sedai do have some academic knowledge that, like, actually does expand the wise ones' ability to do stuff like healing. Like, they didn't know some of this, like, technical stuff, but as soon as they have that info, they're running with it in a way that the Aes Sedai are left in the dust about.
Right.
Perrin gets a mention of Rand, which gives him a flash of colors, showing him that Rand has lost his hand.
And he's hanging out with Min and a tall man in a black coat. I think that's just Logain, because that's who he was talking to. Okay,
agreed.
Yeah. Again, that's going to be after the last chapter, 2 chapters ago, right? So when in episode 500 when he lost his hand.
Yeah, we're all kinds of aligned right now on the timeline.
Yeah. Jordan's like, all right, I'm syncing it up hard, right? The guy who makes the timeline was like, ooh, this is easy. Breeze through this.
Indeed. So there's some questioning about why Anora and Masuri have been meeting with Missima and why he's been allowing it. I still don't understand all that stuff. It doesn't seem like it really matters, so...
Yeah, it's one of those things where they thought they could talk him into not. They didn't realize he was crazy, I think, is what it boils down to. And they thought they could talk to him like another ruler. They thought they could be the Aes Sedai who talks him around to a sane place, and they just didn't realize they were dealing with religious fanaticism. And it took them a lot longer than it should have for them to understand that their abilities were never going to convince this man to act in the way that they thought he was supposed to. And that he was a rabid dog that needed to be put down. And I think everybody else saw it, and they just self-delusioned themselves into thinking they could talk him out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the only thing I've got, right? And then there's that whole, like, weird thing where Nora feels like she betrayed Barrelane, and that's why she burns herself out to rescue Galad, right? Like, so this is all leading up to the rescue of Galad and bringing him back, which leads to the demise of Demandred, right?
Yep.
So this is all important in that the death of Demandred and the winning of the battle.
Yeah. Well, really, I mean, Galad could have died. His part in that battle was already done. Him getting saved is sort of beside the point. Oh, no, because he's able to hand off the things.
Exactly. Right. He has to hand off the medallion. If he doesn't hand off the medallion, Lan never gets it.
Right. No, yeah, you're right. He does have to get saved in order for Demandred to die. It's all so we can kill Demandred.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, Perrin hates being around Massima because he constantly talks about the Lord Dragon. He's constantly like the colors, the swirling, and constantly seeing Rand, which he doesn't want to because we all know what Rand's been up to lately with the women in his life. Because Matt's had a couple of glimpses. Everybody knows what Rand's doing in bed. He's bonded to too many damn people.
Yeah. They get some scouting reports from the Shan-Chan that the other Aiel clans, the other Shido clans, are coming pretty quickly from both sides, and then Perrin decides they won't get here in time. We go forward as planned. We're not adjusting anything.
He said earlier in the chapter they'd be done by noon, and then they said these people aren't going to get here by noon, which is cutting it kind of close if you need to, like, you know, escape. But I'm assuming gateways are going to be enough for them to get out, right? I don't remember something. I don't remember what ends up happening with those extra
they
troops.
They stop and then turn around. What happens is, like, their forward scouts see the battle happening. They see the Shido losing, and the clans both stop and then retreat. And I think they ultimately do move into Maighdin afterwards, but, like, they don't engage.
Do they become part of Tharava's sort of return group? Yeah.
Presumably they join up with her on her way out. And yeah, this POV ends with the wolves howling. So again, syncing us up with what was happening in the last chapter. So we switch POVs back to Fail. More time has passed. Everyone's throat is dry. Maighdin's strength is running down. She's not making the scarf move as often as before. But we've now been found. The faces appear at the edge, and the rescue operation begins in earnest. This is where Thurl and Aravine finally manage to, spot them and say, yes, they're alive, and start to communicate about how Thurl tracked them, and then he was crying, and he saw Galena pull the lever, and then Roland says, we can catch up later. For now, I need to get you out of this literal death trap.
Fail. Galena had promised. Could the woman be Black Oddjaw? You think? Fail? Yeah, she could. She could be.
She very much could.
And then, the brotherless show up and start digging them out, and, of course, promises to smack her bottom and then kiss her.
Not great.
I was going to... not corrosive. Corrosive is not the word I'm looking for. Yes, thank you, VG. Coercive. Yes, he's being coercive.
Yes, very much so. And this is the part where Fail decides that if she has to sleep with him in order to get out, she's going to do it. And that's why she feels guilty later. She hasn't done anything to feel guilty about until now. But this is the moment when she thinks, if I have to do what I have to do, I'm going to do it. And Perrin will never have to find out. This is the moment she betrays Perrin in her own mind.
Even though later he says, it's fine, right? I don't really care if something like that happened. Like, I understand survival is important.
Yeah.
And she comes back with, no, very indignant. I would never do something like that. When it's like, you would have. You just got lucky.
Right. And this is the moment when she decides, I'm going to do what I have to do. And thus, it doesn't matter whether or not she follows through. She made the decision. That's how she sees it. I think that's a ridiculous point of...
Agreed, yeah.
Of principle and honor. But nonetheless, this is the moment that she feels guilty about.
There's an episode of Buffy, which I hate to bring up, but I always got to bring up. And it's all about... She gets in her own head. She basically is like, I've given up. I've failed. I've completely failed. And it comes back to, there was a moment in her day when she was putting a book on the shelf, and for that moment, she gave up. The moment later, she was immediately back in the fight, right? But like for that split second, she gave up, and she punished herself forever for that moment. And this sort of has the same feeling to me, you know, is this idea of like, I didn't sleep with him, but in that moment, I realized I would have to get what I want. And now I have to punish myself for that realization.
Yeah. Yeah, cannot relate at all. I definitely have never held myself to account for a bad thought for decades. That's never happened.
Good. I'm glad you've never experienced that, because it's awful. It's really fucking awful.
I've absolutely experienced that.
Yeah, I know.
Like, never in quite such stark and ridiculous terms as what Fail is going through, because I don't have quite that exciting of a life. But, like, yeah, holding yourself to account for a thought you had way beyond the point of reasonableness is very relatable.
So then that's a very quick Fail chunk, and then we're right back to Perrin.
Yeah, but it allows us to get a sense of time passing. Even though it's a brief page count, it covers a lot of, like, ephemeral time.
Them trapped in the basement, basically trying to get out, waiting.
Yeah, and Perrin waiting for people to finish assembling and organizing, and it's a hurry up and wait sort of moment.
As at this time, all the wise ones are drinking the water and hopefully either passing out or losing their ability to channel.
Right, exactly. We're just waiting for that to happen. The sun is rising, but like there's just nothing interesting for the first like 2 hours, so we have to pass it with a time jump or with a POV switch.
And so Perrin's waiting for Grady to bring the rest of the Two Rivers folks, led by Tam,
Yes.
to the battle. That's like what the timing he's waiting on is, like, go get the rest of my troops, basically. And like when Tam walks in, it feels like those old 80s shows when guest star would walk in, everyone starts cheering, and they have to wait 3 seconds before they can say their first line because the live audience won't shut the hell up. Yeah, that's my, when Tam walks in, he's my like go nuts because I love him appearance. Yeah,
definitely.
So yeah, off to the left, a bluish flash appeared. I assume that's the gateway opening, right?
Yep.
And then Tam comes stumbling out with a good number, 3,000, I think, bowmen.
Yeah, and it's a bunch of Two Rivers folk that are old school Two Rivers folk, and also a whole bunch of the new Outlanders who have said, no, this is our adopted home. We are Two Rivers folk now, and we will come fight for you just as if we had been around since the days of Manetheren.
And yes, we can't necessarily pull a Two Rivers longbow, but we're going to pretend that we can and, you know, grab regular longbows that shoot 200 feet as opposed to the 400 feet that the Two Rivers ones do.
We can still shoot accurately, just not with your bows.
Right. Right. Not quite as far, but sure. We're still going to take out a bunch of people in the space when they get close enough. And we get a bunch of news from the Two Rivers, right? So this is sort of a bump news update from the Two Rivers, right? Maighdin he went to the Two Rivers and recruited about 40 men and boys to take to the Black Tower, because of course the Two Rivers is a very high concentration of old magic, right? We see the Baron does it with the girls, and she's like, I would take more if I could have. There's just a limit. And so same thing with Maighdin.
Yeah, and this is also when Tam says, so are you not gonna tell me about Rand being the dragon? Were you just never gonna mention that? And Perrin is like, correct, I was never going to mention that. I will continue to not mention that.
There's nothing we can do. Moving on. Right? Like, that's really like...
And it's funny because Perrin thinks that he's somehow answering or not answering a question to Tam, but Tam has known since the day he found a baby in a battlefield.
On the snow, on Dragon Mount, yeah.
Like, Tam knew. Tam has known that something was going to happen.
Okay,
Tam
then
knows.
why didn't he teach him the fucking sword?
Because he was in denial while Rand was growing up.
No,
like
Tam's a dark friend. I'm convinced, 100%.
Okay.
So I like that little theory. What if Tam was a dark friend? What would he do? Well, exactly what he did. He would take the baby and hide away and not teach him any of the skills he needs. And Not prep him for the real world, just raise him as some podunk farmer without any skills. Set him up to be corrupted.
The entire speech about how it's because I was raised better this time is just absolutely an accident. Like, what happened?
It's just evil not understanding that, like, raising him with good farm values is, like, actually counterproductive. It's absolutely like Ishamael's like, but he's such a city guy. He's like, raise him like a farm boy and he'll be worthless. And it turns out,
I mean, the rural-urban divide is a real problem.
It's a real problem. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's not. That's actually what Saidin and Saidar represent, is the rural-urban divide. That's why the White Tower is in the middle of the city and the Black Tower is out, like, in the country, right?
Yeah.
You got basically a bunch of Algai to Suswai are leaving the tents. I don't know why. I assume... is that just because Perrin's walking out?
No, they haven't walked out yet. They're still behind the fog line, and they're looking down, and suddenly a group of Algai to Suswai headed straight towards them. What they're doing is they're just heading straight up the hill into the fog, but Perrin happens to be directly in front of them, just hidden by said fog. And he says, well, okay, looks like this is the moment that we start walking out of the fog then.
Is that Taviran? What's going on there? Why are they leaving? Is it because the wise ones are passing out from the tea? Is it... Like, that's... I couldn't figure out why this group of Algai to Suswai are gathered and leaving the group.
It says the Shido sent out raiding parties frequently, but this one was aimed straight at Perrin. So I always assumed that, it was sort of a, well, we do this anyway.
Gotcha.
We just sometimes go out, and maybe the wise ones are falling asleep. This fog is a little creepy. Like, let's go out. Let's do our thing. Let's go out and see what's going on. And they go out to see what's going on, and it turns into a pitched battle.
Got it. So this is where this morning, he lets the knotted rope fall, right? He's like, I'm done waiting. It's time for action.
He also drapes his cloak over a bush and is like, I'm going to come back for it later. And it just seems like the most random detail. Like,
that is a little random.
I don't think you're going to remember which bush up on top of the hill slope to come back to for your cloak after this battle, my dude.
See, I would disagree. I have been with people where we have gone to concerts where it was like, oh, you can't bring a pocket knife in or something like that. And what do people do? They take whatever they can't bring, or like a drink or something, or drugs, right? And they just go and they bury it behind a bush in someone's yard for a second, go to the concert, come back out and grab it on their way back.
I've never known someone to do that.
I've seen it happen multiple times.
It just seems like it'll be a low priority to go searching this ridge for your cape after surviving a battle. Seems more intense than a concert. I don't know.
I mean, you kind of have to ride back that way to get back to your home base anyway. Might as well just grab it on the way. I don't know.
Guess.
You don't want it getting in the way. And what else you can do? Throw it on the ground? Like, what?
I don't know. It just feels like a funny little detail. But either way, he ditches his cape and his worry knot cord thing. He ditches them both and just starts walking down the hill slope with Aram at his side. And so, you get this moment where just two men emerge from the fog, and the Shido think, oh, no big deal, we'll just kill them. And then just an army materializes, like, from 10 feet behind them, just like...
Yeah. Oh, this scene is great. I was saying beforehand how cool it was to have this moment where, two men come out to confront 400, and the 400 overconfidently start charging at them, and then the whole army emerges from behind them. It's a very... Avengers Endgame, right? With the portals, the two guys start charging, and then all the portals open up behind them, and there's way more allies than you think. Like, this is a very similar, right? Like, it feels like, oh, Aram and Perrin are running in a group of 400 Algai to Suswai, and then behind them from the fog emerges a whole army.
Yeah, and all of Perrin's Aiel have to wear red armbands because the Wetlanders can't tell Aiel apart, and he's afraid that they'll kill their own allies, and so they all have to wear red armbands, and they're all mad about it, but it is what it is.
The red arm. I like Perrin with the knife in one hand and the hammer in the other. I don't think we've seen him fight knife and hammer. He usually has, like... or does he usually have a knife and hammer? I think he's usually just had the axe.
I think he usually is fighting with the axe, and that's a two-handed weapon. I think this is the first time he's gone into battle with the hammer as one weapon. I don't think we've seen him do that before. And so this is a new weapon setup for him. For whatever reason, the hammer is not a two-handed weapon in the way that an axe was.
Which is weird because it's heavier.
Is it?
No.
No?
No, I was just... Because I'm on my reread of the original... I'm back in my original reread. I'm on book 5 now. So I just read about him getting the hammer, and it's a 10-pound hammer, and it's about twice the weight of the 5-pound axe.
Yeah, so I don't know why he treated the axe like a two-handed weapon and the hammer as a one-handed weapon, but for whatever reason, that's how he's fighting in this battle. And so, yeah, he has a knife in his offhand.
I mean, he's powerful enough to swing the 10-pound hammer. That's like the whole thing is like he is strong enough to do that, and that's incredibly strong. Again, it's not on juggling levels of unrealistic in these books, but it's pretty unrealistic, right? Like a 10-pound hammer is too much weight to swing for very long, especially in battle. However, it is devastating.
Yeah, blunt force trauma is quite powerful. Tam has this comment about how he had hoped never to hear the Aiel spear and buckler rattle again. He's like, yeah, I heard that sound in the Aiel War, reminding us about when he found Rand, right? Like the Aiel War was the last time he heard that sound, and he's like, that's given me some uncomfortable flashbacks.
He's like, oh, that's bad.
And they're still waiting to see if the tea worked, and they're waiting. Tam is getting the battle started. They're waiting.
He's talking to this wise one, Adara. I like this. He suspected she was far older than she appeared, because she appears about Perrin's age. Wiki says she's anywhere from 70 to 140. So yeah, not exactly 20.
Yeah, a bit older than you, Perrin.
Yeah, just a little bit. You were right. She is a bit older. So I thought that was an interesting little... He's like, she seems older. I'm like, yeah, she is. A lot.
Nice catch. And then they see the amount of fireballs coming out, and they say 15 to 20 wise ones escaped the tea, which means hundreds of wise ones are asleep,
they got most
and
of
sitting
them.
ducks right now.
They got most of them, for sure.
Yeah, like Tharava and a few of her people, basically, are most of who escaped.
Well, and I'm wondering how many of them are seeing how few people are actually channeling and just aren't responding, right? Right? There might be as many as another 50, right, who didn't get caught, who are just like, nope. That's not enough of a response.
That doesn't seem very Aiel.
No, fair enough. But it does seem very Shido.
True. And she thinks also about this. This is the Shido had violated Jeito to such a degree it was questionable whether they could be Aiel any longer.
Right. That's where they're not really Aiel.
It's like, I guess we're going to allow you to get sold into chattel slavery with the Shan-Shan because you aren't actually part of our clan or our kith and kin anymore.
And so those 4,000 or 5,000 Algad Suswai turn into 20,000 because now that there's a force out there challenging them, that basically brings out the rest of the force. And it's pretty much all of the fighting force that the Shido have, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, they go from wandering around getting breakfast to full battle formation in like 5 minutes. And then they start singing in parts their Wash the Spears song.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tam remembers that geometry is a thing and uses the elevation to his advantage to fire. Perrin's like, "Ooh, it's too soon," but then it's like, no, they're much higher than the Shido. They've got longer reach than normal.
That feels like something that Perrin shouldn't have missed. Is the like higher elevation means you can shoot further thing? Like that seems very obvious.
Well, it's the tunnel vision of being so close to the culmination of what you've been imagining. His critical thinking has shut off at this point.
It really has. Well, it's a good thing he's got Tam there to be like, now you fire.
Exactly.
But yeah, so in each wave, they're not killing thousands with each wave, but they are killing hundreds with each wave of weapons, right? And 20,000, how many waves of arrows are you getting off?
Well, it's all about a multi-phase attack. They're starting out with the relatively low effort arrows because that is what works best at a distance. Because it allows the others to close, right? The Shido were busy dealing with arrows from above while Perrin and his friends get closer.
Well, and while the Forsaken, or while the Wise Ones and the Aes Sedai can start attacking, right? So they need to get in danger. They need to be in danger before they can be attacked.
And some of the Shido also peel off to north and south, right? That's another part of it. But Perrin and Tylee anticipated that, so that's where the Seanchan are, is waiting to take the flankers head on, which I didn't really understand how that strategy worked until this read, but now I get it.
Is like, yeah, wait for them to splinter themselves and then attack the wings with the reserve troops they didn't know you had, which are the Seanchan channelers that tear apart the wings.
Yeah, you outflank the flankers, and then everyone has a bad time.
And yeah, Tylee claimed the Damane were used for all sorts of tasks, but the truth was they were weapons of war, and they and the Suldam were very good at it. And that's just, the Shido got torn. The Wise Ones have never been warriors, ever.
No. They negotiate peace. They do not lead the battles.
So yeah, it's shortly after the Seanchan begin tearing apart the flanks, the Aes Sedai and the Wise Ones start tearing apart the central group because they feel threatened enough to do so.
Yeah. And I thought that it says here that the Wise Ones and the Aes Sedai both use throwing motions to make fireballs. I thought that the Wise Ones didn't do all the arm waving.
Yeah, they did criticize the Aes Sedai for doing that.
So I was a little surprised to read that here. Like, I thought that you didn't do the arm waving, but I don't know. Not a big deal.
Where is that? The flankers. Yeah, and can you imagine these? I feel like this is if you're a Shido who survived Dumai's Wells and ends up in this situation.
Oh man.
Where you saw the rolling ring of earth and fire and your fellows get just torn apart and you fled and survived that and joined Savannah, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck, not again.
Yeah, that would be rough. And I mean, Perrin, thinks here, flesh can only take so much. The Shido begin to fall back. And I'm like, yeah, how much sooner are they falling back than normal because they are in a post-Dumai's Wells world?
That's a good point, right?
Like, they don't break, but they do fall back, in my mind, kind of quickly. And I wonder if it's because, they understand the futility of standing against this much power.
And so as they start to fall back, the archers start to advance, right? To keep the distance shorter between them so they can continue to fire, which is just brutal, right? Interesting statement here about the feralness in Perrin, where his blood was becoming fire. Elias claimed it was a natural feeling when you were in danger of your life, but he had almost drowned in the waterwood once, and he felt nothing like this. Just that interesting, no, there is a certain thrill about attacking and fighting, and specifically killing, I think, is where that thrill is coming from.
Yeah. Elias didn't think it was necessary to specify the difference between fighting for your life and having an accident. Perrin is like, well, but technically it's not the same. And it's like, Perrin, there's a difference. Elias was talking as a wolf who goes hunting, right? Chasing down dangerous prey is not the same thing as falling through the ice in a frozen river.
So you're saying Perrin took him a little too literally?
Yes, Perrin is such a literal person, and I'm a very literal person, but I'm like, Perrin, my dude, come on. A little symbolic thinking now, and then won't kill you.
So yeah, then he's in the middle of the fight, and I assume Taim is shooting over his shoulder at the Shido, right? It says the shaft took him. I'm just gonna assume not Taim, Tam. Yeah, I would agree that Tam is definitely specifically following Perrin downslope and firing at people who are specifically in front of him. Because he wouldn't trust anyone else to do it, but Tam has the ability to do that. And we also see him doing that with Lan when he's going after Demandred in the last battle. Yes. So my headcanon is he's doing it here too. Absolutely. Clear him a path, boys. Yeah, and then eventually him and Aram, who's running right beside him, because Aram even earlier Perrin thinks he has this scent of someone who's going into, hunting dangerous prey. And it's like, he's hunting you. He knows that he's going to turn on you and kill you at some point in this battle. That's why he's keeping up with you. That's why he smells focused. That's what he's doing. And so, they plunge into the hand-to-hand combat side by side as the battle gets joined. They work very well to take out the first 6 people. It's a pretty intense little fight sequence, and then the chapter
ends as they pass through their first 6-pack of Shido.
I mean, the description is brutal. He blocks a spear with his knife. Perrin swung his hammer. The Shido tried to stop it with his buckler, but he altered the swing slightly and heard the bones in the man's forearm snap under 10 pounds of steel swung by a blacksmith's hammer. I mean, brutal, right? This is a skilled fighter who tries to go for a block, and Perrin just basically goes, "Nice block. I'm crushing your arm anyway."
Right. This is not a finesse move I'm doing. This is just pure momentum.
Mm-hmm. And then he just cuts the guy's throat because he got his arm crushed and he has no defenses anymore. So yeah, I mean, Perrin is a force of fucking nature. He is huge. He is brutal. I mean, he is Thor with his hammer.
Because that is what he's doing. He's rolling through them like a boulder tumbling downhill, and they're all, dexterous fighters that are all nimble, and it's like, but how do you fight a landslide?
Right. You don't. You get out of its way or you die.
Yeah.
And that's what Perrin is here, is a landslide. With Aram being incredible, again, this is one of those situations where, like, really Aram in his 9 months of training is a better swordsman than these Aiel who were raised on spear or spearmen. Like, I know he's obsessive, but come on.
Yeah.
Aram's skills always seemed unreasonable to me, more so than even, like, Rand's.
Agreed. It's like Aram is even better than Rand at picking up sword skills. Like, it's just like, I'm sorry. That seems
And at least Rand, all the 3 boys have the advantage of memories that aren't theirs, right? Perrin can pick up wolf memories through generations, whether that's on an instinctual level when he's fighting. I do think that helps him fight better, right? Matt has all of the memories he had some of those memories from before he went through the gateway. He has all of these memories about battle now that he has gone through the gateway and got his holes filled. And Rand, of course, has, LTT's legitimate memories in his head. So it's just interesting to me that all 3 of the boys sort of get this, like, level up where they can get skills externally from other people.
Right. And we're supposed to believe that Aram, without that, is able to surpass them.
Exactly. In a shorter period of time. Yeah.
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 Nah.
I know he's obsessive, and I know he learned from the best, but...
Yeah.
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 I'm shaking my head, yeah. But fire in his blood, fire in his heart, fire in his head. No one and nothing would keep him from Fael. Love that.
It's good. And next chapter, we will see him setting the Shido on all kinds of fire.
So much fun. Just nice battle. Nice little battle chapter. Probably won't be the longest episode because, battle chapters don't necessarily have a lot of things for us to say about them, but looking forward to the death of the Shido.
I mean, this wasn't even the longest chapter or the longest episode in the world.
No, definitely not. But over an hour. Is there anything, let's see, did we miss anything we wanted to talk about that we failed to talk about in the previous episode that happened? Because a lot of things happened in the last month. And I was wondering if anything, you thought of anything that you forgot to cover.
Oh, you know what? I have a little bit more to tell you about WotCon.
Okay, yeah.
First of all, I got you some stuff at WotCon that I need to give you when I see you at your wedding. I have some WotCon stuff. But also, I wanted to specifically talk about the sing-along in the atrium that happened.
Oh, yeah. I saw a little video of that. That was really pretty.
Yeah. Tucker and Riyadh are, first of all, just amazing, wonderful people, and they're very sweet. And I said in the episode before I went to WotCon that we were going to be doing Wat Idol sing-along specifically, and that did in fact happen, and it was just as spectacular as you would imagine. what they do is they basically hand out a QR code. There's a piece of paper, several pieces of paper, cardstock floating around with a QR code on it. And that takes you to a spreadsheet of all the songs that Joe is able to play on guitar. And they have their little amp and a mic, and Jen has her kazoo, and there's also like a drum box. So that way someone can do percussion. Like Omar did a lot of percussion, even if he's not part of Talker on Riyadh. He does a lot of the percussion during the thing because, you know, and like DT was there doing percussion. It was great.
Oh, God,
and
DT.
yeah, so we're like singing all of the songs, but some of them were the Wat Idol lyrics instead. And those of us who had written the parodies got to come up and like, you know, lead the group in the singing of the song. And so I got to do Andorran Idiot. Jess did her Sublime song. Yeah, we did a lot of them. And so there was the normal sing-along songs, and then there was the Wat Idol sing-along songs. And it's even more fun than all getting to eat together in terms of being like a bonding thing where we're just all enjoying this thing together. I mean, group singing is just so fun. It's just so great. And because of the way the hotel's set up, none of the patrons have an issue with the fact that we are filling the whole space with all this drunk caterwauling, you know. And like it's just so many people all together enjoying it and just having the best time. It's just really magical.
That reminds me, I purchased a upgraded karaoke machine for the wedding.
Oh, very fun.
So the one I had purchased before, it was like $150, right? And it had two mics and the speaker for $150. The quality just wasn't there. It was a lot of distorted. Like you could tell you were singing into it, but it was pretty bad. And then it just died. I could tell something was like it stopped charging. So I went, you know what? I'm not going to buy another cheap, in quotes, speaker system. So I spent about like $350 on a much nicer one. And that will be, because I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend it on, it's for the wedding, because we need to have something with a microphone that we can make announcements with.
Yeah.
That is understandable, right? And portable. So this isn't battery powered. It does have to be plugged in, but it is a much, much nicer karaoke with microphones that are understandable and a speaker that's a much better system. And so, yeah, there will be a karaoke machine at the wedding. And there will be a lot of Wheel of Time people there who will be more than happy to sing some Wat Idol songs, I'm sure. And then there'll be a group of people going, wait, what? Those aren't the lyrics? But I would love to have a little mini Wat Idol karaoke moment at the wedding. That would be a blast.
Oh, that would be really fun. Well, I'll see if Jen's willing to share that spreadsheet with me.
Yeah, we'll have to like get the songs on Spotify so we can like play them.
But yeah, that was
YouTube. Yeah.
And according to Sam and Nasai in chat, apparently some of the hotel staff joined in with the singing. We're just that infectious.
Even with the lyrics they didn't know.
Well, also, I mean, there was a lot of songs that we were doing just like the normal version.
Oh, okay.
It was not entirely Wat Idol karaoke. It was just Joe's range of songs, but some of them the lyrics were us because Joe's cool and like learned some of the songs for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they are pop songs, right?
They're all very popular songs. I mean,
Yeah.
It's less relevant when you parody a song nobody knows, right?
They don't tend to win a lot.
Yeah, not so much. But
because I had there's a couple of ideas I had that I threw out to you where I was like, oh, I think this would be a great song. You're like, I've never heard of that song. I was like, fuck. Okay, right.
Yeah, well, I also hadn't heard. I never know a lot of the songs. There's a lot of songs because my musical tastes have odd holes. But yeah, it's another one of those aspects about WotCon, which actually they also did trivia. So I guess I was really appreciating the Talk Around Riyadh contributions to WotCon this year. They really made a lot of my con experience, specifically what it was. But it's just a wonderful thing about WotCon, how much of the whole thing is made by us, you know, like all these different people each have the thing that they're bringing, you know, whether it's a card game or trivia or all the panels we make or people having very specific like cosplay missions with other people. Like there's all these little things that make the amalgamated experience.
I like WotCon framed as a creators conference, but like the content for who's a creator is so big. It's like if you
Yeah.
create a costume, that's a creator. If you create cards, that's a creator. If you do a podcast, if you do a YouTube channel, if you do, if you even just create artwork or any of those things, it's like I really do feel like the con, I shouldn't say it's for those people, but like those people are the people who are creating the con for themselves, and they like there's other people who are welcome there, but that's really the heart of the con is the content creators.
Yeah, exactly. And it is an extremely big tent, and I'm always, drawing more people in and getting them to participate to a greater degree. And like, we all do our own little thing, and the ultimate
The
patchwork.
audiobook narrators.
Yeah, and then we end up with this like Gleeman's cloak of awesomeness. And like, I haven't even watched back all the panels, but like all the panels are on you can watch the streams back because we care about having a virtual option and also to allow people to watch all the stuff that they missed. And like, there's just so much.
And oh my god, the difference between WoTCon panels and JordanCon panels, like, to me, I love the cons. I love both cons, right? Like, but where JordanCon fails to me is the panels. The panels just, they haven't figured out how to get charismatic people up on stage. But because WoTCon is by creators for creators, you have a bunch of very charismatic creators up on stage who are very good at talking to a group of people and being entertaining while doing it. And I think the panels are just so good at WoTCon.
Yeah, and it's they keep innovating too. Like they had this year, I think they did this last year too, but they did Wat ones where they have like people like eating, hot sauce stuff, and you've got TV speculation and all these different things and very different people organizing them, so everything's got its own flavors and yeah, we're really all working together to make this like wild circus roll down the road. There's too much to all appreciate at once, but like the collective experience is just like, wow, we are really spoiled for choice when it comes to how we want to hang out together and how we want to spend this time. And it's really special to be part of making it happen. Yeah, and Guy Roberts, I guess, was involved in eating the hot wings.
Oh, good. Yeah,
so congratulations if you were watching that. You got to watch one of the actors from the show suffering hot sauce that was created by the Black Tower guys. Have the whole like hot sauce thing like on lock with the taint.
Oh yeah,
like taint sauce is a whole thing. And it's whole swaths of the con that I just hear about third hand, but I know that it happened in the same building I was in while I was off complimenting London River on her first ever foam like costume thing she did in this amazing Dane Bornhold outfit like from the show. And I was like, it's so many people were complimenting her on it, and she's like, oh yeah, it's my first time ever working with this foam stuff. We're all just like, what? Like, this is perfect. But apparently making foam stuff is really difficult. I don't know, because I'm not that kind of ambitious, but she nailed it.
Of course.
Yeah, I did the post-con survey today, so everyone, if you haven't filled that out, go fill that out. But probably it'll be dead by the time that this episode gets published. But Nablus is literally gauging interest for doing a WoT cruise. He's literally taking this joke bit seriously enough to like gauge interest in doing a WoT cruise.
Well,
that's the last question on the survey.
Like a cruise, like people from WoT getting together and going on a cruise together? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's literally how serious this bit has become. Is it's the last question on the post WoTCon survey.
I mean, WoTCon started out as a bit of a joke, so that I don't be scared when Nablus starts joking about things, because he just does them sometimes.
Truly,
he does. It really does. He just makes them happen, and so I don't take anything he says as a joke, because
he's such a troll, but you never know when he might actually just like follow through to the most absurd degree.
That's why we're editing Tarvalon After Dark, is right, because like it was almost a joke, but I was like, oh, he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, haha, I could do it. And he was like, yeah, you want to? And I was like, yeah. And then he just made it happen. So yeah, be careful when you joke around about him, because if you he'll take you seriously.
Yeah, he really will. And he is a total troll, but also like under it all, he seems like a pretty decent guy, because this con keeps getting better and it's really cool. despite the fact that this guy who is just a total troll is on top.
He's drunk on power. He's drunk on power. That's what I'm going with. He's just
yeah, something like that.
something like that. I don't know, man.
At least he's on our team.
Exactly, right? It's a very Matt-like figure, right? How does he keep getting lucky? Like he just
Yeah.
He's good, but he's also very lucky, you know? Yeah. All right, well, I don't have anything else. I got myself a new phone. I upgraded my phone for the first time in a long time. I'm very happy about that. It's either been hand-me-downs or the cheapest of the cheap phone I could buy for a long time, and I finally said, you know what? I'm going to invest in a new phone. Very exciting for me. Nobody else cares.
I'm really hoping to upgrade my phone soon, but it's so much work, but it's also so overdue. So I might be joining you in the new phone club shortly.
Again, the wedding was the excuse. I was able to be like, well, I want an upgraded camera if I want to take any pictures. And so, you're able to make that excuse to yourself and tell yourself, that's why I'm getting it. Not because, my old one was pretty badly cracked in the back and the battery life was pretty much non-existent and it was 5-6 years old. So, yeah.
You're allowed to upgrade your phone every now and then.
Yeah, every now and then. It's time. So. Gosh, other than that, no, nothing really. If I say wedding one more time, I think you'll just cut off the recording right here. So,
yeah, I have to figure out what I'm going to release on the feed for the month of not having episodes. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking I might just do all the tangents. I might just release episodes that are just the tangents between books across the years. That might be kind of fun, kind of a random subset to collect together.
No, that would work. I don't know. We took the whole month off, right?
Yeah, we're gonna take a month off. So.
I don't know if I want to take the whole month off.
You said you wanted to take a whole month off.
I know, but now that we're getting close to it, I'm like, man, this is. I need my therapy. I mean, my weekly recordings. I don't know what I'm gonna do without it.
Well.
Yeah, so we'll see. I might beg you to record sometimes. I might be like, come on, can we record? Man, it's still 3 weeks away. Come on, let's record. Never. Would you get up? We need to do stuff. I want to record.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?